Good morning everyone, how are you doing? This is Amanda. It's the 20th of February 2023, Pisces new moon as I record this, and we are going to be channeling the energy of the late John F. Kennedy Jr. I have channeled his father JFK a couple of times I believe, and I'll put the links to that below, but this will be the first time that I have attempted to channel JFK Jr. It's come in very unexpectedly, wasn't anticipating doing this. It wasn't on my radar at all until about 10 days ago when I just stumbled upon a video on YouTube detailing the last 24 hours of his life, and it captured my imagination, and ever since then I've been very hooked into his energy in a good way and have been receiving all sorts of signs from him to do this piece of work today. It should be said at the outset that he feels to be, although he was a man who lived his whole life in the spotlight and there's still much controversy around him, he does feel quite private, and it feels as though this is actually a big step for him to be coming through in this type of way. And indeed, when I actually thought, okay, I'm going to be channeling JFK Jr., I wonder if anyone else has tried to do that. Not because I wanted to see what they had to say, just because I was interested to see, has anyone done it? I couldn't find that at all. So I'm not saying he hasn't, but it definitely isn't one of the people that seems to be channeled that frequently. So let's respect the fact that whatever he wants to bring through today is also for him linked into decompressing. That's the word that I'm getting. And decompressing is an energy whereby you can sit with another and look over, reflect over your life, the way that certain things happened, have a conversation, come to terms with things yourself. Often the souls that come forward to speak to me on this channel come through with a degree of healing for us and a message for us, but it's also as though they get something back in return as well. So I feel as though there's also a degree of acceptance is the word that I'm getting from him with regard to the way certain things were, how things happened, and let's just get into it, shall we? I would like to say at the outset that I'm not wishing to offend anybody here. Anybody is entitled to have whatever opinion they want, but I, on my channel, am channeling him, believing that he is deceased. I know there's a whole movement out there that believes that he's about to ride back in, and he will touch on that, but the energy I'm getting is that he is definitely passed over. And I would please ask that you don't put loads of comments with regards to stuff that he's still alive, because it's not, I think it's disrespectful to the energy that I've got sitting here with me today. I can understand it though to a degree, because it feels very much like a Princess Diana type energy here, which is here we have two very well-known, glamorous people who seem to have it all, who had their whole life ahead of them. It's hard for us to sometimes understand how life can be taken away so quickly, and we struggle to understand that. But the truth is that people die, and it's important that we can be okay with the energy of death. I also feel that his spirit is very much one about free-spiritedness and freedom. And actually, I think when people are wanting him back, what they're actually wanting back is the energy that he encompassed, that he had, and he does still have, because of course just when you die doesn't mean that you become nothing, your spirit lives on. So I feel it's his spirit that is wanting to come back into the American psyche. In fact, it never left, and that's what I am getting on that. In fact, he gave me the analogy of Christ consciousness. And those of you that follow my work know that I talk quite a bit about Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness is the belief that the energy of Christ effectively, and what he stood for and what he embodies lives within us as a template. And it's for us then to activate that. So people that think that there's going to be a second coming of Christ in terms of a man that's actually going to walk the earth again, I don't believe that. I believe there's a return of Christ consciousness. And it's the same with the JFK energy. I'm not saying he's Christ, but it's like the energy of who he was and what he stood for and what he embodied is very much an alive thing, but it's not a man made of flesh and bone that's about to reappear, okay? So as I say, don't offend anybody. If that's what you think, fine, but I still think you'll get benefit from watching this video if you choose to, but we're going to be channeling somebody who is passed over. Okay, I think to start off with, I'm going to just read a very brief resume of who he was and what his life was about for those of you that might have forgotten or those of you that never knew. Because to be perfectly honest, 2 weeks ago, all I knew about JFK Jr. was some people were saying he's still alive. So I realised that there was obviously an energy of he's probably dead if people are saying he's got to still be alive. And that's about it. I honestly didn't know anything about him at all. So I'm going to read this and then we'll get into the signs and the connections that have been building over the last week and bring him in. So it says here, he was just 38 years old when he died on July the 16th, 1999. I'm going to look at some numerology in this video on his date of birth, his date of death, and a few other things, but we'll come to that in a minute. So he was the heir apparent to the family dynasty, the golden boy, basically. He'd lost both his father, JFK, and his uncle, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, both to assassinations earlier on in his life. And on the fateful day when he died, he had planned to travel to a family wedding. By the way, I'll link this article that I'm referring to below. He'd planned to travel to a family wedding. He had, however, broken his ankle earlier on. I think the cast had just come off, but there was still a weakness there in his ankle. He climbed into a single-engine Piper Saratoga plane alongside his wife Carolyn Bessette Kennedy and her sister Lauren Bessette. He meant to drop Lauren off at Martha's Vineyard and then fly with Carolyn to the family compound for the wedding, but all three of them never made it. So it's important also just to acknowledge and respect that 3 people died, not just John. 62 minutes after takeoff, the plane crashed into water. They're said to have died on impact and their bodies were found some days later. Ever since then, there's been intrigue and mystery around his death, some of which has been compounded by things that do make you raise an eyebrow. I believe I'm correct in saying that the military took over the investigation and discovery or the reporting of his death quite early on, which you might say, well, hold on, that's a red flag there. But equally, somebody of such high social importance, I can sort of understand why that might be the case, to keep things tight and to keep information tight as well. So a number of theories exist. Some people think it was just a tragic accident. That is the conclusion that I am coming to from what he has been telling me so far, but we'll bring him in, as I say, to discuss this more. Other people think that he deliberately crashed his plane because of problems he had in his marriage and his work. He was a publisher of a magazine called George, which was starting to fail financially. His marriage was also said to be in trouble. Or was he murdered for asking too many questions about his father's assassination? Certainly there was an interest there in trying to discover what had happened to JFK. Some people, as I say, also believe that he's still alive and coming back. He's not. It's just the spirit of him that is what is being felt and what is being craved and what is wanted. A few other things just to say about this, that he was born on Thanksgiving Day in America on November the 25th. came into the world just a few weeks after his father was elected president. So his early life was very much within the White Office. There's a lovely photograph of JFK there at his desk. This is John as he was known to the American public as a little boy, playing inside the desk. I think it's one of his memories. So he grew up in the public eye. And aged 3, there's also another photograph here. Hold on, it's in this article. Just show you this picture. It's a very iconic photograph. Okay, there he is, saluting his father's coffin, aged 3. So it's a bit like Prince Harry, Prince William here in the UK. We have a collective memory in our country of them walking behind Princess Diana's hearse, and it's etched into the public mind. That picture of John saluting his father, aged 3, is very much in the American psyche. But it feels as though he lived his life very fully, had a lot of fun, is what he's saying. Took his law exams 3 times, I believe, passed it, became a lawyer. I don't think it brought him a great deal of joy. Had a number of romantic liaisons, as I say, married Carolyn a few years before his death. What else do I want to say about his life here? I've mentioned the magazine. The official report of the crash was that he was suffering from some sort of spatial disassociation, where he wasn't able to accurately sense or assess where the horizon was. He'd had his pilot's license for just under a year. 300 hours, that must be a past life reference, 300 hours of flying experience under his belt, and may have struggled to understand some of the plane's more intricate equipment. Definitely some sort of spatial disconnection. Anything else I want to say before I move on? No, I think we'll move on at this point. I'll link that article below. It's just a nice little summary. I'll also link the video that got me interested in him below, which is to do with the last 24 hours of his life. It brings it very much to life in quite a claustrophobic way, actually. Let's now start with his date of birth and link into his energy. So born the 25th of November 1960, what's interesting about it is it's a double 25 energy. If you add up the digits of his date of birth, you get 25, and he was born on the 25th. So he's a 25, 25, 7 energy. 7 is linked into the energy of Neptune, which is the energy of the sea, the god of the sea, Neptune. And today is a Pisces new moon. I don't know if I said that, so it feels very appropriate to bring him through today. So a watery grave doesn't mean everyone that's got a life path 7 is going to have a watery grave, but in his instance, it is, and it was a watery grave, diving into the depths of the ocean. Double 25, colour-wise, yellow and turquoise. Turquoise, again, the colour of the sea. Somebody who always... I'm getting a strong pull to water sports generally, whether it be sailing, water skiing, kite surfing, that type of thing. So always drawn towards the sea. But the other thing about the 25 energy is it's linked into discrimination and analysis, discernment. It's often a vibration of somebody that comes to study life in some way. So interesting that he had to take his bar exams 3 times. So the application of the mind. I think he was probably somebody, I'm picking up an energy here of somebody who could be easily distracted and at times found it hard to focus. So in his life path numerology, with this double 25, there's an energy of somebody who was here to hone his skills in terms of discernment and discrimination, taking a scientific approach. If you believe he died as a result of pilot negligence to a degree or inexperience, it throws that 25 energy into very stark relief as well. Maybe more time actually studying the instruments and learning about how the plane operates in all levels of light would have been obviously theoretically better and have produced a better result. It's said that he was meant to fly the plane earlier on in the evening, 6 o'clock, when it would have still been daylight. I think they set off quite a few hours later than that, so it was dusk. So the energy of the light definitely comes into play here. But yeah, double 25 and a 7 energy. The other thing about numerology, he died age 38, which is a number 11 energy. 11 is an awakening moment. For him, it's a tower moment, but also for the country. Again, a bit like Princess Diana's death, one of these very pivotal moments, like JFK's death, very pivotal moment that is remembered. It's a gateway through which the whole country goes. It's also a gateway, it's a portal of grief. So when somebody very iconic like this dies, it produces a moment where others can get their grief out of them. They might be sad that he died and they cry because of that, but actually they're also crying for the mother that they lost 2 years previously or the child that they lost 10 years ago. So it's a gateway moment of grief as well. He died on the 16th of July 1999. The thing that strikes me about that date is not so much the actual, what it all adds up to, it's the fact you've got 3 9s in there. 9s is linked into the completion of cycles, the beginning of something new. And you had 3 people that died. You had Lauren, you had Carolyn, and you had John. So 3 lives, 3 9s at the end of the cycle. On the 16th of July, 16 in the tarot is the Tower card. The Tower. I have pulled some cards off camera and the Tower came out, and I'll tell you what the cards are in a moment. Another thing I wanted just to mention about him is he's got Moon in Aquarius, which I always think is a nice little link in for me because I've got Moon in Aquarius. Princess Diana also had Moon in Aquarius. Some of the people I channel seem to, we've got a similar numerology or a similar astrology, or there's something to do with the planets that pulls Soul Tribe together. I also believe that the eulogy to his death, where I think his uncle brought through some beautiful words, was actually on my birthday as well, 23rd of July. So there's some links there. I love the fact he was born on Thanksgiving Day as well. So more than anything, his energy seems to be one of giving thanks for what was rather than grieving what is. And I think that was very much his mantra in life, is what he's saying to me here. Giving thanks for what is rather than mourning what was. So it's very much the spirit. He has the spirit of live for today. And I guess that was compounded by, even if he doesn't remember it necessarily, his father's death at such a young age, and then his uncle's death. And there was other tragedies in his life. I did actually read, and it's quite interesting, that after Jacqueline marries Aristotle Onassis, I believe he had 1 son, but I believe he then lost that son as well. That son died. So there's just this whole energy of grief, but within all of that soup of grief, there is this one man, very strong man, who seemed to be able to, let me just get his photographs, shine his light, basically. I love this particular photograph. I was really drawn to this photograph with the light coming down. But for those of you, yes, that don't know what he looked like, here he is. Okay, so a very good-looking man. I think he was dubbed the sexiest man alive or something, which he talked about or laughingly brushed off in an interview. But yeah, good-looking, all-American guy. There he is. This was the photograph that I chose for the altar, as it were, when I was trying to connect with him and bring him in. So we'll leave that there. The other thing that I feel very strongly with his energy is a knight. And I can't quite remember how all this came about because it's been a week of connecting to him. but I kept feeling an energy of knights of old. I guess it's the whole Camelot, the Camelot mythology, which his father started, JFK, Camelot. Let me just actually Google what Camelot means, what the actual official Camelot, JFK, meaning. Because sometimes it's one of these things that's bandied around. A mythical time associated with a sense of unfulfilled promise. What did Camelot mean? Camelot, of course, was the site of King Arthur's palace and court, a time and a place of happiness, idyllic happiness. Okay. So it was a shining example of what government should and could look like. So yeah, the Knights of the Round Table type energy. I went away for a few days last week, and I said this on my social media, but just to bring my YouTube crowd up to speed, I got lots of signs tuning into his energy with regard to knights. Bizarre things like going past lorries with knights of old emblazoned all across them. Stayed in a little hotel. There was a little shop across the road from where I was. I walk in, and the first thing that I see are these little figurines, which I had to buy. I have to find a little boy to give them to, but knights of old. And they even had a king. Look, they even had King Arthur there. So I feel as though he's got an energy of a knight, and it feels as though there's a mythical energy to this as well. Although those of you that follow all of my work know that I've done a video recently, in fact it was the Twin Flame video, where I was talking about mythical time, going back into mythical time, the energy of Avalon, Camelot, Arthurian legend, and I do feel as though John is linked to that, and it feels as though he may very well have been one of those knights, because I'm feeling that those Knights of the Round Table came from or were embodied different nationalities, or had different nationalities' blood within them. There was a lineage which is linked into, it isn't necessarily linked into location. The other thing that he shares with Princess Diana is, I haven't got the photograph to show you, but there is one of them. I think they did meet, but I don't think it's actually photographed. But they had the same light. You know, sometimes people have a light that is within them. He had the same light as Diana. We come from bloodlines, but we also come from light lines. And we also come from galactic lines as well. And the one thing I will say about his energy galactically is I pick up, again, very similar to Diana. I said this about Diana. I said that there was a strong Venusian link, Venus, the planet of love. And if you look at the pictures of his marriage, I don't believe it was a very happy marriage, and he's going to talk about that a little bit. But very, you know, he's a very romantic knight of old. Chivalrous is what I'm hearing. Beautiful, beautiful photographs of their wedding day. I mean, just stunning, absolutely stunning. But definitely a chivalrous knight of old is what I'm feeling. Right, let me just put these so they're standing up again. I think that as a boy he might have had a set of soldiers like that or something. That's what I'm feeling. Okay, what else am I wanting to say? Other things that I've been picking up. Nosebleeds. So there's a reference here to cocaine, basically. Now I feel it's her. I feel it's linked into Carolyn. I don't know why I was particularly shown it, but I was shown it. And the way it came through was I was actually looking at myself in the mirror, and I became aware of a space just underneath my nose here, and it was as though I was about to get a nosebleed. And I heard in my head somebody say nosebleed. and it was John. And number one thing is I've never had a nosebleed in my life, ever. So it was like, I'm not about to get a nosebleed because I never have had one. But then I realised what he was probably alluding to, which was cocaine use. Then I went on a walk and I walked past a van, which it was called something like Snowy, I don't know, Snowy Cliffs or something. I can't remember, but it had the snow in the title. So snow, cocaine, nosebleeds. So I'm feeling that as well. And in fact, this is the first thing I think we'll talk about, because he also gave me a song. And it's not, I don't know if it's a song that he necessarily would have listened to himself, but it seems to be a song linked into his marriage. And you see, this is the thing about all of this. We look back with rosy-coloured specs. We look at somebody like this and we want it to read a certain way. We want it to be the fairy tale. But I'm not feeling as though it was a fairy tale. Feels as though it was becoming actually quite a nightmare. And I feel as though I'm being shown the drugs with her, okay? And then this song, and the song is by Michael Jackson, another Heartsquad member. And this is the song that I got with regards to his marriage, and it's Give In To Me. And I'm just going to read the first couple of verses. It says, she always takes it with a heart of stone, because all she does is throw it back to me. I've spent a lifetime looking for someone. Don't try to understand me. Just simply do the things I say. Love is a feeling. Give it when I want it, because I'm on fire. Quench my desire. Talk to me, woman. Give in to me. You always knew just how to make me cry, and never did I ask you questions why. It seems you get your kicks from hurting me. Don't try to understand me, because your words just aren't enough. You and your friends were laughing at me in town, but it's okay. You won't be laughing, girl, when I'm not around. I'll be okay and I'll never mind. It's a song that it's a very dark love song, basically. And I'll leave that for you to maybe dip into the lyrics more, but that's the energy that I get between the two of them. And I got 3 words that he gave describing the relationship, all beginning with the letter T: tumultuous, turbulent, and tortured. So beneath this, I'm not wanting to say it's a facade, because there's a degree of this was also a moment in time that was real and true, but it became something else. It became something that was much more twisted, is what he's saying. It became much more twisted. And certainly towards the end of his life, there were significant issues there. And I'm only bringing this up really because I think it plays into where his mind was at on that particular evening when the plane crashed. Here was a man who had been, it said he'd been working hard that day. That's the whole reason why they took off late, okay? He'd been trying to save this publication, his magazine, I don't know, the deadlines and stuff. So stressed with work, anxious about his marriage, and also with a health condition with his foot as well, lack of experience piloting the plane, it all sort of seems to have contributed. So, okay, I've covered that. Let's just move that away. Done that. In fact, he gave me another song. I guess John liked his music because he's giving me a lot of songs. The other one was by, I think this is a song that's been covered by many people. It's called Feeling Good. We probably all know the song. And I'm feeling good. You know, that song, we all know it. I think it's been in loads of adverts. But have you actually ever looked at the lyrics of it? Because the lyrics in relation to JFK Jr.'s life, and in particular the way he died, but also his love of flying, is quite telling. It says, birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Reeds drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom in the trees, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's very him, very, as I say, very free-spirited. And this thing about it's a new life, I feel that's the afterlife with him. Okay, where shall I go now? Let's now go to another thing that I was feeling with him. So I went to set up my altar, and I have these altar mats, you know, many of you have probably got similar, with all sorts of different designs on them. And the one that I've got here, which you might not be able to see very clearly with my camera, but it's actually of the Tree of Life. Okay, so, and it's like anything. Those of you that are channelers or healers or readers, you know that things that you choose for a particular video or a reading or a connection are important. They say something, whether it's a crystal, a card, whatever. So even down to which altar mat to use to help me, you know, just create a little portal for John to come through. It was the fact that it was so specific that he wanted the Tree of Life one. And it made me just, I was a bit intrigued by that. I thought, wonder why, of all the ones it could be, why the Tree of Life? And it was so strong. I was feeling such a strong Jewish energy, because the Tree of Life, of course, comes from Jewish faith. And I thought, was he a Jew? Was he a Jew? I don't think he was a Jew, but why am I feeling this very Jewish energy? So I looked it up, you know, what religion was he? No, he wasn't a Jew. So I thought, no, I didn't think he was. And then he basically put something in my lap, you know, he just gave me the piece of information. And I was blown away by it, because his nephew, JFK Jr.'s nephew, is a beautiful young man called Jack Schlossberg, sorry, you know me in names, apologies. Now, believe it or not, those two are not the same man. This is JFK Jr. as a younger man. This is Jack Schlossberg. I'm just going to call him Jack now, okay? All these J's. This is Jack. This is his nephew. And Jack's father is a very prominent Jewish businessman, philanthropist. I don't know what he is, you know, but it's the Jewish blood, basically. And I realised that John was leading me to Jack. And then when you actually look at them both, they're literally like two peas in the pod. I mean, facially so similar. Similar nose, similar mouth, similar ears, similar big shock of hair, similar personality. Again, you know, just thinking about JFK Jr., go down to the sea, and all I could see is kite surfers. And okay, I live by the sea, but I'm in the UK. It's the middle of winter. It's freezing cold. There aren't that many kite surfers down there every day. This particular day, when I'm tuning into JFK Jr., they're everywhere. Almost to the point where I thought, I don't believe he's a walk-in. This guy Jack is a man in his own right. But put it this way, his uncle is overshadowing his life in a positive way to a very, very large degree. Very large degree. Not in terms of you have to do what I wasn't able to do, but just in a... It's just very, very strong, guys. It's very strong. And I actually would say he's somebody to watch for. And the other thing I wanted to show you, let me just find if I can find it quickly, is a photograph of Jack. I'm just calling him Jack. So remember Avalon, okay, and Knights of Old, and bringing back figures from the past who might have been these mythical energies, or myth, it's real. Here we've got Prince William and we've got Jack, two members of a similar dynasty. Different dynasty, but ruling dynasties. Diana's son, and here we've got, this Jack is JFK's grandson, his only grandson. So it's like a meeting of the dynasties. And when I saw that photograph, I just thought, wow, those two, when they actually come into their real power, because William's obviously going to come into his power, he's going to be the King of England at one point, or King of Great Britain, but Jack's one to watch. So He's still quite young. He might not want to go into politics yet, but just one to watch is what I want to say. One to watch. Okay. I think now I'm going to show you the cards that I got the other night, which completely and utterly blew my mind and confirmed to me I definitely want to do this work with John. So this is from the Japanese Tarot. You see, even that's a link. Because I believe that the lady is Japanese that made this deck, and Jack's got a very strong link to Japan, or interest in Japan. It's really weird. It's almost as like their soul energies are very merged, over and above the fact that it's just uncle and nephew. John is this guy's spirit guide. Definitely one of his main spirit guides. Whether Jack knows that or not, I've no idea. I mean, I'm sure he's often told that he looks like his uncle, but this is more than just looking like your uncle. This is a merging of souls to bring forward a destiny, a destined moment. Okay, so these cards that I've got, let me just tune back into them because this was a few days ago that I pulled them. Number one, we have the Jester of Fire. This feels like it's John, okay? Jester of Fire. But I heard playing with fire. I was playing with fire. So I'm talking here about his death. Okay, this is about his death. I was playing with fire. Temperance. In this deck, it's the swings. How high can we go? How low can we go? A bit like, I live by the sea and we have air shows here every summer, and you get the planes that come in and they do almost like a kamikaze type energy. It's like they go really, they loop the loop. You see, I'm wondering actually whether John, when was he born? 1960. I keep feeling an energy with him linked into World War II, which ended in 1946, something like that. Because I'm feeling he might have been a fighter pilot in a previous war. So it would be the Second World War, really. And I think I'm right in that. I'm getting a strong pull to that energy, which would mean that he came back really quickly, really quickly. If that's the case, because the war ended 46, he's born 1960. There's a compulsive need to come back. But I'm not saying he's about to reappear on the American stage, okay? So I'm talking here historically. I feel he was a fighter pilot in the Second World War, and he might very well have died in a similar fashion to how he died in this incarnation, crashing into the sea. I don't know. But anyway, this card, so going very high, going very low, looping the loop. I'm not saying that's what he was doing on this particular day, but with this card, it is saying I was playing with fire, I was pushing it, I was pushing it. We have the card of the moon. Now in this deck, it's so interesting because the moon is an eyeball, okay? The moon is this great big eyeball out on a stalk, trying to see into the darkness, but not being able to necessarily. So this is impaired vision on that fateful night, not able to see clearly, and pushing it, playing with fire. That just might mean he was tired, you know, it shouldn't have been an evening where he even contemplated flying. He was tired, is what I'm feeling. He was tired, but he had to get there, so he was pushing his luck. Next to the card of the moon, we have the card of judgment. So again, can you see these are all sort of leading up to the conclusion that his judgment on this particular day or this particular night was off. Remember, he's a double 25 energy. It's all about discrimination, analysis, discernment. Didn't do the full recce, as it were. Maybe didn't look over the plane as thoroughly as he would have done normally. Didn't maybe do his preparations for flight as thoroughly as he normally would have done. Winged it is what he's saying. Winged it. I winged it. Okay. So we have judgment being impaired. And look at that card of judgment. Look where that judgment, that impaired judgment leads. It leads into the sea with all of the crows feeding on the sea. Won't go into any more details on that. Then we've got the card of the hot air balloon, okay? Just got him here now. Hot air and bluster. It's the energy of hot air and bluster. One man in a balloon, or in this case, one man in a plane. I can do it. Of course I can do it. Of course I can manage this. It doesn't matter that my foot's still not right. It doesn't matter that maybe I haven't got a co-pilot. It doesn't matter that I'm tired. It just, you know, it's fine. It'll all be fine. Wanting to get up there as well, he's saying. Wanting to get up there in the sky. It's very much a feeling of John Denver, actually. I've channeled John Denver before. And John Denver also died in a plane crash. And with John, there was this another John. All these Johns. We've got John Lennon, JFK. We've got JFK Jr. We've got John Denver. Anyway, but the thing is, why I'm talking about John Denver is that he loved to be in the air. There was this feeling of complete freedom. It was, in many ways, a very natural element for him. And it's just, I just wanted to get away from it all. I want to get my little plane up in the sky for an hour. I'm going to fly them there, and I can forget all my worries, really. You know, that's sort of the energy of it. I can forget the day that I've had, is what he's saying. I can forget the day that I had. I can forget the pressures of the business world for a moment. I can forget the troubles with Carolyn, even though she's in the back of the plane with me. You know, I'm just piloting my own ship in the sky, and there is just this energy of, I feel really at peace there. But it soon turned quite dark. We have the energy of the Hermit with the Sun and the Tower. Now, when I saw the Sun card in particular, what he gave me, John gave me, was, I just heard the word Icarus. So I had to look up Icarus, and let's just do that together. So Icarus was, some of you will have heard the story of Icarus. Can you hear that plane? It says Icarus was so intoxicated. Icarus was the son of the master craftsman Daedalus. So it's a Greek mythology we're talking about here. And it says, Icarus was so intoxicated by the experience of flight that he went higher and higher. As the wax in his wings melted, he tumbled into the sea and drowned. The saying, "Don't fly too close to the sun," is a reference to Icarus's recklessness and defiance of limitations. This is what I'm picking up with his death. An energy of recklessness, impulsiveness, feeling as though infallibility is what he's saying. Nothing can touch me. It's really interesting because it's not in a, I mean, it is egotistical, but it's not coming across in terms of a very nasty way. More just in a, he didn't know any other way. I guess he was brought up in a bit of a gilded cage. Everything that he wanted was there for him. Maybe he didn't have people around him who told him no. Oh, he's saying he did. So he's shown me his mother now. And I do know this, I've read this. Jackie forbade him, I believe, from training to be a pilot. People say she had a premonition, but she told him no. And it was only after she died that he then started up his lessons again and became the pilot that she never wanted him to be. So his mother would tell him no. And I'm really getting this finger. I'm really getting that she did this. No, John. And he listened to that. But when she was gone, he was a bit, excuse the pun, all at sea. He was all at sea. So this natural impulsiveness came back, and he did it, and he paid a high price. So he definitely is giving me the energy of Icarus. So those of you that know anything about Greek mythology and the whole story of that, you could maybe, again, excuse the pun, dive deeper than I have with regards to that. But you see, the Icarus energy that he had on that particular day, or maybe in his blood, as it were, leads to the Tower moment. And the Tower moment leads to the Five of Tides, which is the card of mourning. And I did wonder, looking at this card, because it's a woman who's pregnant, I wondered whether Carolyn could have been pregnant. And I'm not entirely sure about that. Okay, he's saying it's more that the hopes of becoming a mother, and for him the hopes of becoming a father, died with them on that flight. And it's to do with lineage. So the sons and daughters that they never had, the sons and daughters that he never had. And in this deck, the suit, which I think is the Knights, are jesters. And this one comes with the card of Drowned and the card of the Ace of Wands. And this to me feels a bit like the Fool energy. Not the Fool in the tarot, I'm talking actually about a fool. I was foolish, I was reckless. I was playing with other people's lives, not just my own. I didn't stop to think. And it resulted in drowning. The drowning in this particular deck is the Hanged Man, okay? Suddenly I saw life in a different way, that maybe I should have done X, Y, Z, all right? And then the Ace of Wands in this deck is linked into a spotlight. This is the flashlight. The spotlights that were thrown on the sea for 3-4 days to try and find them, to retrieve them. And they did retrieve them, and they brought their bodies back. And I believe they were cremated, or they were, the funeral service was at sea, so I guess they were cremated. So, yeah, those are the cards. Hi again, my battery died. So I've had a coffee and I'm coming back and we're going to do some channeling now. But before we do that, I just saw something else in the cards that I hadn't seen before. So John's leading me back to them. It's this combination of the Hermit with the Sun. The Hermit is the one where we have to go within to find our own inner light, our own inner compass, as it were. And even though it wasn't sunlight when the plane crashed, it was actually moonlight. Couldn't see anything. It feels as though that combination of Hermit, the Sun and the Moon is saying to me that it's confirming the theory, basically, that he couldn't actually see the horizon. He went within for his own inner light because the outer light wasn't there. There were no lights across the sea to guide him. There was no point of reference. There was no light, there was just darkness. So let's go into this a little bit now. And even though I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't just focus on somebody's death, because his is so perplexing to many people, I am going to ask him to talk a little bit about it, and also his transition, what his transition was like. And then we'll go over some of the questions that I know you may very well want me to ask him. Okay, so I'm going to use the Rainbow Bridge spray. He's already here, but just to bring it in a little bit clearer. It's literally like he's showing me, he's sitting on this chair is what I'm seeing, and it's as though he's bringing his chair a little bit closer so that he can listen and so he can respond. And there's also something about him where he likes to look you in the eye. So I feel as though when he was alive, he was somebody who made you feel very much as though you were the only person in the room. He was very engaging. He would look you in the eye, and that's so interesting because Princess Di, who I feel is one of the people that brought him into this Heartsquad group that I channel, was always known for looking down like that, and like she was always like hiding behind her fringe. She had this look of always looking down, especially when she was younger. But with him, I feel he's very much into eye contact, so he's very keen to respond as well as he can to whatever questions we've got for him. Okay, so let me draw up a little bit closer to you as well. And he's really close, guys. He's really, really close. It's almost as though, and again, I know this is an odd thing to say because he's spirit, he doesn't actually have a physical body, but he's so close that I can almost feel his breath, and it's like minty breath. It's like I'm seeing his teeth. He had a good set of teeth. Where's your teeth? You've got your mouth closed in all these photographs, but anyway, I'm seeing his teeth. I'm seeing his teeth. Okay, very close. I just want to sit in his light for a little moment and feel into his energy. And he's inviting you to do the same. So, John, it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming, sitting in your energy. And I still get this sense of a private man who, put it this way, he's saying he's not going to be doing the rounds on YouTube in terms of every medium and every channeler out there. Because he says he never played that game when he was alive. So he would go onto a TV programme for a particular purpose. Or a particular reason, or to promote something, particularly his magazine, for example. But he doesn't do the circuit. It feels as though he's just saying he didn't ever really want to do the circuit, and he still doesn't want to do the circuit in that way. So he's saying he's quite choosy and quite picky in terms of who he actually sits down with, and he was like this in life as well. So even though it feels as though the whole world knew him, or certainly USA knew him, and he would walk down the street and people would say hello to him, in terms of his inner circle, those that he particularly trusted, they weren't as many as you would think that they would be. So it feels as though he had an inner sanctum, an inner group that he trusted, and then there was this other group that it was just a different energy. And I do feel like I'm going back to the sort of the Knights of the Round Table again. I've got your back, you've got mine. He says there are people that, even all these years after his death, still haven't sold him out. And again, I keep wanting to go to Princess Diana. It's just such a very similar energy. I'm now being shown Princess Diana and the, what was he, heart surgeon, I believe he was, that she had a relationship with Hasnat Khan, and Hasnat's never sold out Diana either. So it feels as though JFK Jr. had people in his life when he was alive that he told his private, innermost thoughts to, who have kept those. And of course Carolyn, he's saying as well, who also knew, but like me, has taken those secrets to the grave. It's interesting he's saying secrets to the grave. So by you saying that, John, you make people immediately think or go into an area linked into your father's death. So is that what you are implying here? No, not necessarily, he's saying. Okay. I'll come back to his father's death in a moment, because as soon as I say that, his demeanour changes and gets more serious, where he's in this quite soft energy at the moment with me, and I'd just like to explore that a little bit more first. Okay, so he's talking about the public and private side of him. I'm being drawn to his childhood where he was with Jackie and Aristotle, as being a time when he was shielded and private and more able to lead a more private life. And then by nature or by force, coming more into the open, in the public life where people can see you and take your photograph and want to be with you and feel as though they know you. But it feels as though there was always a side of him which was quite private, and he still feels like that. There's a slight energy with him where he is still a little bit nervous in terms of sitting with us today. So I just want to honour that and acknowledge that and tell him it's okay. I'm hearing the energy of out of my depth, and it's to do with wanting to be here with us. So communing in this way via spirit, but equally not really understanding it. It being slightly, it's a new way of communication is what he's saying. It's a new way of communication. But I am pleased to be here with you. I'm honoured to be here with you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity for coming through and for speaking to people who remember me fondly. I remember my time fondly on earth, even though it was tumultuous, a word we used earlier. Even though it was tumultuous, I lived a good life. I had a good life. Despite circumstances to the contrary, I had a good life. I had a blessed life. I had a golden life. I lived a dream. I lived my dream. I lived it on my terms, in my own way, with my own people, with my family, with my friends, doing things as I wished to do them. I had a blessed life. He's really wanting to repeat that. I had a blessed life. Because the thing is, John, people talk about the curse of the Kennedys, and he's saying, yes, he's wanting to get away from that and to talk about the blessings. And I guess he was born on Thanksgiving Day, so there's an energy coming through for him. What he's wanting to talk about is the energy of thanks and gratitude and blessings. And I feel as though that's something he can help us with, actually. He says, I could be the patron saint of Thanksgiving Day. He's got a slight sense of humour here. He has got a nice sense of humour, actually. But of course, English humour and American humour is slightly different. So there's something here. It's just, there's an ironic type energy with him. Ironic humour. That he's wanting you to remember your own blessings in this life, and that life is a blessing, and that however short it is, however long it is, to make the most of every day. It's like he's within me and he's looking through my eyes, because there's a calendar on my wall over there where I'm drawn to, and it's got a picture of boats in a harbour just bobbing along, but they're not really doing anything, they're just in the harbour. They're looking at a quaint little town, but he's saying, get out of the harbour, you know, go under the bridge, go and explore, see what life actually has to offer. Don't play it safe. And this is quite a private little bit of the conversation between him and me, but I'm sharing it with you because he's reminded me of somebody that I knew who died hang gliding, I don't know, 25 years ago. It was a work colleague. And I can't even remember who this man's name was because I didn't know him very well. He just happened to be somebody who worked in the same office as me. And he went to work on a Friday, went hang gliding, and never came back on the Monday. But the thing I remember the family saying in retrospect was he died doing the thing he loved. And there's an energy here. John's bringing that man's energy back to me, because there's also something here with regards to John and the way he lived his life, that he lived it on his terms and in his own way. And I don't get the energy of regret with him at all. I'm going to ask you, though, about the other two that died, because, of course, it wasn't just you that died. It was Carolyn and Lauren. And there's an energy coming through of sorrow. More than anything, it's just sorrow linked into their parents. So, because he says, I understand grief. I understood grief. I had been around grief my whole life. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to live my life in the biggest, best way that I could, in the most fulfilled way that I could. And so to bestow grief upon another family troubles me, troubles my soul. So I'm being taken to their parents, whoever they are, and I'm just feeling, he's saying there was a cannonball of grief that I laid at their door, and for that I'm very sorry. I want them to know that I'm very sorry. I don't feel the energy of the sister-in-law at all, Lauren. I feel Carolyn's energy a little bit, and let's just see what he wants to say about that, or what Carolyn may want to say. Do I firstly feel them together in the afterlife? Yes, I feel them around each other, but let me just go further into this. Show me you and Carolyn in the afterlife. Still sailing on is what he's saying, still sailing on. I'm seeing them in a boat, on a river or a sea, the sea of life, still sailing on. This is interesting, I've never heard this before. He's saying we weren't very compatible on the earth plane. So I get the impression that these were two souls that recognised each other very quickly straight away. Definitely a soul connection with them both. Definitely a fated meeting and a fated ending. but the earthbound energies didn't suit us, is what he's saying. He's showing me her as being like a wild horse, He's showing me an untamed horse, affectionately. It's not a criticism or a judgment. An untamed horse that didn't want to be tied down, and was by me in that particular incarnation, because of my circumstances, because of my name, because of my family, because of the press, because of the coverage, was quite wild and untamed. I get a sense from him, he's saying I couldn't manage her very well, but there's also an awareness that he didn't want to control her or change her or manage her. But definitely some of her behaviour, in many ways they're like perfect mirrors to each other, because there's a recklessness and an impulsiveness with John, and there's a recklessness and an impulsiveness with Carolyn. So it's like combustible is what he's saying. It's combustible, the energy between them. I also would like to reiterate something, or just go back to something I said earlier in this video, because when I was bringing the thing through about cocaine and drugs, there isn't anything here in his energy where he's wanting to shame her or publicly diss her memory, but there is something linking into that energy with her and drugs, which is relevant for why in particular are you bringing that up, or why am I particularly being drawn into it? Because it's linked into a whole strata of society, he's saying, where it's acceptable, where it's seen as being the done thing, whereas actually it can be very destructive. It leads to great unhappiness. Addiction is addiction. I'm feeling as though he was addicted to different things. I'm not feeling drugs so much with him. And I'm wanting to say flying. I know that sounds weird because he wasn't that experienced, but it was a bit like when he got in the plane, it was a bit like a drug for him. It was like a drug, and it took him into a different world. It took him into a different realm. It took him into a different element. And he was quite addicted to it. He was quite addicted to the thrill of the ride, of the throttle, of the noise. Okay. It feels very sad between them towards the end. I'd see her in a very white minimalist room, whether that was an actual room or whether it's symbolic of her state of being, but very minimal, very lonely, very lost, very distracted. And her and his energy on the earth plane, all at sevens with each other, just like creatures passing in the night. His attention was elsewhere in his final months. So take me, John, into the publication, and George, the magazine that you were running. Something I really wanted to do, something I was having fun with, something whereby I was being allowed to explore my creative side. It feels as though it was a, what's the word? I'm being shown law as being this very serious thing where he had to really apply his intellect and brain and focus. And it's not that he didn't use those attributes when he was being the editor of the magazine or writing for it, but it was just different. It was more fun. It was less dour. It was less serious. It was more me, is what he's saying. It was more me. And I was able to explore subjects undercover, he's saying, which I couldn't necessarily explore if I didn't have the, when he says the smoke screen of a magazine, it's more linked into, it's easier to say things via a magazine or via other people in a magazine or imply things in a magazine as opposed to just coming out directly and saying it. Okay. He's saying we were deliberately blocked from, he's saying we, so I don't know if he had a business partner or he had somebody who was a major shareholder, something like that. Feels, I'm hearing the word we were blocked. The money was pulled, and he says it was pulled deliberately. It feels as though there was a shadowy group that didn't want him to explore creatively different things. Let's put it that way. Bit of a loose cannon is what he's saying. I was a bit of a loose cannon. They didn't know what I was necessarily going to say or air or allow to be aired in this magazine. And he's saying, remember, these were the days long before TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, where theories now, you might have a theory on something, he's saying, and it can go around the world in 5 minutes on social media. In those days, we had magazines. So the magazine was a more powerful tool. It was a more powerful weapon, and it was feared more. The power of the written word is very powerful, he says. He says I was quite, I wanted to say the word misguided, but I think that's a little bit severe. Muddled might be another word to describe it. It's as though he'd lost his focus a little bit. He'd gone off track with regards to what he really wanted to do with it when he first set it out. So I don't know how long the magazine went on for, but it feels as though it had got a little bit off its mission target. It had become, okay, he's saying to make it commercially viable, it had to become a bit more fluffy, a bit more about what sells rather than what I really wanted to achieve. So I felt compromised, is what he says. I felt compromised in terms of what I could actually do with it. It had actually become quite a heavy cloak around my shoulders, and it definitely feels as though it was something that was pulling him down. So what were your ambitions when you decided to go for it? Just to be creative is what he's saying, to be creative, to be me, to be John, to do it my way, to make a splash, as it were. Okay. What about, I'm going to ask you now about your father's death and what you may have known, what you might have found out, either on Earth or from the other side. So let me just go into him and his dad. I'm seeing two great big circles and I'm hearing two barrels. So I guess this is linked into the gun itself. I know nothing about guns. I've never held a gun in my life. So double-barreled shotgun, is that what was used? I don't know. Double-barreled shotgun, okay. He says, my father always knew there was a target on his back. My father was always clear that there was a target on his back. I'm not talking about John, I'm talking about JFK. JFK always knew that he had a target on his back and still went for it. And that's one of the reasons I particularly was inspired by him, that he didn't let the fear of death, effectively, thwart him from what he tried to do. He still went for it. He said there's something there for everybody to learn from, that ultimately we all die, not necessarily by an assassin's bullet, but we all die. And to start to live our life anyway from that fact that we're all going to die. And then from that, you actually can start to live your life and appreciate the time that you've got. And also use the time as in a most effective way that you can. No sort of, I want to use the word bullshit, no bullshit energy in terms of taking time. And I'm being shown mediation with JFK and particularly the Middle East, and it's this energy of, come on, let's just do it, let's get everybody around the table and let's just do it. Because again, JFK and JFK Jr, they come with this sort of Camelot energy, linking back to knights of old. This is the way you used to do things. Just get everybody in the room, slug it out, shout it out, and let's come to some sort of agreement. rather than it being done through people's secretaries, and it becomes like Chinese whispers, is what John is saying. It becomes like Chinese whispers that so-and-so has said this in a foreign land and this person has reacted to that, but you're just reading accounts. You're not actually face-to-face with somebody. Coming back to this energy of being face-to-face with somebody as the way to deal with things, whether that be President of the United States, whether that be somebody in your family. Get round the table and talk to them, look them in the eyes, see the white of their eyes. See the terror in somebody's eyes, see the fear in somebody's eyes, see the love in somebody's eyes, see what is within their eyes, okay? Okay, so with regards to trying to find out who killed your father, I'm just going to go back to this deck actually. With regards to finding out about who killed your father. An inside job is what he's saying. An inside job. Ace of Tides. Ace of Cups. Chalice, Holy Grail, they tried to kill the energy of love. They tried to kill the energy of love. They tried to kill the energy of unity. They didn't succeed. They temporarily might have set it back. They didn't succeed. He's taking me back to Jack, his nephew. It's not to say that, you know, the nephew is the answer to the world's problems, but it's more that he's wanting to show us cycles and that everything comes back around. A template that exists within a family, a cup or the grail that is held, is never destroyed. It is just passed on. It's passed on generationally. Everything comes back around is what he's saying. Everything comes back around. It's strange. I'm not feeling any sense of anger towards his father's death at all. To understand what I'm about to say, you need to sort of understand some of the other work that I've done, particularly with regards to duality. I've got a playlist on duality, and in that I've explained this card so many times, which is that it's the famous saying from Shakespeare that all the world's a stage, and on that stage there are many players, and every player takes their turn to bow and say their piece, and then they exit the stage. And it's to do with John having a very good understanding of whatever happened with his father, whatever happened to anybody that is a contentious thing, that everybody plays the role that they're meant to play at that particular time. And actually with JFK's death, there was this outpouring of love, of grief, but a big heart opening that came as well. And he's saying, this is the thing that you need to understand. He's now referencing Princess Diana's death as well, which is that when sad things happen, somebody that people look at as a champion of love or a champion of light and they get taken down, we have our human shadow side, he's saying, thinks that that's the end of it. That's the end of it, that the flame goes out, that the cup gets depleted and put away, never to come back out again. But he's saying actually those moments, which initially are about devastation, create the biggest heart opening across the planet. So actually it was whatever happened and whoever orchestrated it and whoever did it, he's saying inside job, actually brought about a great flow of love, energy and heart opening into the world. Because the heart, he's saying, needs many emotions to open it. And grief and sadness are one such tool. Not the only tool, of course, but one such tool. Other tools being joy and happiness and laughter. Okay. Right, let me see what else I want to ask him in this initial video, because we will come back. I just want this to be like an introductory video to him. I'd like to, I said I was going to look at his death, didn't I, and his transition. So let's just do that now. I'd like you, John, if you don't mind, and if it's not traumatic for you, to take me back into that cockpit with you on that fateful night of 16th of July 1999. So the first thing he's doing is he's showing me himself getting onto the plane, and he's saying he was able to get onto the plane quite easily. What he means by that is he's just showing me the steps up to it, and it's like there's no problem with his foot is what he's saying. So he's wanting to rule out that his foot was a big deal. So yes, he was recovering from a foot injury. Yes, the cast had come off. Yes, it wasn't completely healed, but I don't feel as though that was a big factor in what happened at all. He's showing me himself sitting down into the cockpit. He's putting his goggles on. Earmuffs, is it he put on as well? I'm seeing earmuffs going on. Probably not the correct term. He's in his own little world, basically. It's quite interesting because I see the two ladies in the back of the plane. They are looking out of the plane window. They are talking to each other a little bit. But John, it's almost like he could be in a different plane. He's in the same plane, but it's like he's in his own little world. He's in his own headspace. He's not aware of the chatter in the back. There isn't a lot of chatter coming between him and them. It reminds me of a London taxi. And those of you that have been in a London taxi, probably all taxis, there's that glass window between you and the driver can't usually hear what you're saying in the back because there's the glass window, and I'm assuming there was no glass window, so this is an energetic thing. It's just like there was this energetic wall where he was just blocking out whatever they were talking about, and he wasn't particularly interested. He was just very much in his own little world. So he's showing me in the plane. Okay, the plane's moving off now, it's taking off. Everything's okay. He showed me his hand on the, is it called the throttle? Gear stick, I don't know. I'm just seeing his hand on that. And it's like in a car, like revving it back, or I don't know. I wanted to just keep using the word throttle. So using a lot of throttle for whatever reason. Okay, so getting up there, being quite, he's saying he's looking back now at this and reflecting on what he did, and he can see that there was a desire to get up there quickly, to almost get there quicker than was possible. It's a bit like when you get in a car and you've got to go 30 miles and it will take however long 30 miles takes to get you there. Even if you drive it quicker, it's still going to take you a set amount of time. You can't do it under that set time, really, however fast you go. But in his mindset, he's got this thing about having to get there quick to make up for the lost time. So they should have left earlier. So it's as though he's making up for lost time. He's wanting to get there quicker. There's a sense of urgency with it. I'm feeling a spiral of stress within the body, within his body. I'm feeling it's all going okay. I do know that for some of the journey he went along the coastline, he can see the lights. I'm not feeling anything is coming up there. And then there's this sharp turn into the ocean, which I believe was the quickest way to get there. He's showing me that. And then blackness. Blackness. Very frightened, very frightened. It's just his energy I'm feeling. I'm not feeling the girl's energy. Frightened. Because of not being able to see. This is a weird thing to say, and it probably isn't an actual thing that happened. I think it's probably symbolic. But again, you know, in a car, when you can't see where you're going and the screen can mist up, and you get like a hanky out or something, and you're trying to clear the screen so you can see, like condensation. I wouldn't have thought there'd be condensation, but that's what he's showing me. As I say, it might just be energetic that he couldn't see where he was going. He was trying to clear his view. I'm feeling the plane going like that. I'm feeling my body wanting to do that, so it's banking. At that moment, he's understanding that something's not quite right. But it's not through a visual reference, it's through his body. His body's telling him that it's going in a certain direction, that it shouldn't be going in. It's like, I'm wanting to do this, it's going that way. He's becoming a bit contorted. It's like the reels here is becoming contorted. He's trying to straighten it back up. He gets it to a certain point, but I feel as though the vehicle's wanting to do this. It's wanting to bank. I've got a high ringing in my ears as I'm talking to you now, which is to do with altitude. I'm feeling a little bit dizzy in my head. The ears, the altitude, it's like my body can't adjust to, am I up, am I down, am I right, am I left? I am disorientated. I'm feeling dizzy. I'm starting to panic. I'm starting to sweat. I've got beads of sweat here. I've got beads of sweat here. I'm going like that. Where are they? I'm hearing. And he's referring to the radio signals. Where's the voices? Where's the, talk to me is what he's saying. Talk to me. There's nothing coming. Nothing's been given to him. It's all gone silent. It's gone quiet. He's feeling very alone. He's completely disassociated from the two at the back. I wouldn't be able to have comprehended that in addition to what I'm feeling here is what I'm sensing. And it's odd because I can't get anything past this point of the plane doing that. Because I believe the plane did try and correct itself and then it nosedived. But I'm just feeling it at that moment, it's like all was lost. Okay, he's not wanting to show me too much beyond that, but let me just see if I can get anything else. There's no sensation of being in the water or feeling what the water is like, because I feel as though, I think it said they were dead before impact, or they were dead on impact rather. It just all goes blank, it all goes blank, it all goes black, it all goes dark. There is nothing. Okay, so let's now go to transition, John. I'm being shown a chair. It's like a lounge chair that you'd see in a lounge or a sitting room that's waiting for him. His mother's there. She's waiting for her son to return home. But it's weird because it's like it's the boy that's returning to her, not the grown man. Even though, of course, he was a grown man when he died. It's very confused and jumbled. And I don't actually feel like he totally remembers. It's a weird one. I've never had that before when I've tuned into somebody's when they're transitioning. Usually there's a very clear memory of it. And in this, it's all jumbled and confused. And almost like I'm wanting to say concussion. Almost feels like there's a concussion type energy where just not aware of what's happening, not being able to understand where you are. One moment you're in the cockpit, then you're in this chair, but the chair isn't on Earth. But where the hell am I type energy. But his mother's there, and he's saying because my mum was there, I knew wherever I was okay. She's peaceful. She's just standing there. She's not doing anything. She's just standing there. She's a signal post is what he's saying. She's a signpost that wherever I had found myself, it was okay. It was where I was meant to be. I'm getting no sense of the other two at all. I would have to tune into that separately. I'm just seeing him landing with a bump is what he's saying. But not into the sea, which is what happened, but into the afterlife. And then he's saying it takes a lot of navigating from there for me to understand where I was. And I'm hearing the word discombobulated. It's like I couldn't make sense of it for a while. I was steered, I was mentored, I was guided through those early days on the other side. I couldn't understand it. I was supposed to be at a wedding. I was supposed to be arriving. I was supposed to be dropping Lauren off, but yet here I was in this other land. And I didn't recognise it. He's saying I didn't recognise where I was. It just feels like the land of clouds. Land of clouds. Lost in the clouds. I thought I was lost in the clouds, but yet my body was at the bottom of the ocean. I didn't understand where I was. But my mum was there, so I knew all was well. Okay. Okay. It's like a blind man walking, is what I'm getting. Blind man walking. It's like walking around like that. It's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. Very disorientated. Okay, how long did that last? It lasted a while, he's saying. It lasted the length of time where people were looking for me on Earth. Until they found me, I couldn't find myself. Until they found the body I left, I couldn't reconnect with the soul that I am where I was now. Then I got it. Then now he's showing me the ship where the funeral was, or the ceremony was, where his family was. They're all standing there. It feels very grey. I think it's like I'm being shown a grey ship. Long ship, grey ship. The sadness, the melancholy. He says, then it hit me that I had died. I could feel people's grief. I could feel my family's grief. He's saying I could also feel my mother's grief, even though she was beside me, for the life that I hadn't had, that she wanted me to be there for longer, to fulfill something. But as a mother would do, she said, it's okay, John, it's okay. He says, knocked sideways by grief. It's a weird thing for a spirit to say. He was blindsided by the grief that he felt from the people that he'd left. Oh, bless you. He's saying, I felt guilty for having done it to them for a third time. So he's referencing his dad, his uncle, and then him. A nation's grief. I'd brought more grief to the nation. I was sorry for that. I am sorry for that. But yet, John, I believe we go when we're meant to go. Maybe not in that way, but he's saying this is true. He's saying if it hadn't been a plane crash, it would have been something else. He's saying he might have got away with it for a little bit longer, but not for that long. He's showing me windows, and when your time is up, and you have to go through one of the windows. I went through one of the first that I could, is what he's saying, without realising I had till I landed here. But it would have caught up with me sooner or later, because my destiny was not to be what people thought I was going to be and live the type of life they thought I was going to live. So to a degree, yes, we go when we're meant to go. And I did go doing something that I love, even though it went wrong on that particular day. He's now drawing me back to the energy of thanksgiving and blessings, and the many hours he'd spent enjoying being in that cockpit, enjoying being in a plane, enjoying being with somebody else in the plane. He's shown me the energy of a co-pilot, I guess, or his instructor. Do you wish that somebody had been there with you to prevent that? I'm not really getting a strong yes to that, because I just get this sense of inevitability that he knew his time was running out, even though he didn't consciously know it. He knows now it was running out. So if it hadn't been then, it would have been another time. the regret he feels or the sadness he feels is for the parents of the two girls that were lost. What about your feelings with regard to them now? I'm not picking up Lauren at all, as I said. Carolyn, I said I felt them together earlier. Let's just see what they want to show. Yeah, they're strange. Well, not strange. It's just it's not the American fairy tale. I'm seeing them with their backs to each other still. So they're in the same space. They're like two magnets that repel each other, but at the same time are drawn back to each other. And it's because there's soul growth there between us, he says. There are lessons that we both learn from each other. So it's always going to be a bit tempestuous because sometimes you don't necessarily want to learn the lesson that your partner is presenting to you. It does feel a bit twin flame-like, I have to say. I'm hearing a song. This wouldn't be a song that John ever knew. I don't even know if you'd like this song, John, but I'm getting the song by, I think Jason Donovan did it, of all people. Not that there's anything wrong with Jason Donovan. I like Jason Donovan. But it's called Together Forever. Let me just see if I can get the lyrics up. Together forever and ever apart. Do you know that song? Oh, it's by Rick Astley. Sorry, Rick. I love Rick Astley. Rick Astley. Together forever and never to part, together forever we two. And don't you know I would move heaven and earth to be together forever with you. There ain't no mistaking, it's true love we're making, something to last for all time. It's never changing, can't you hear me saying, I want you for the rest of my life. Yeah, he's still the incurable romantic, even up there. Yeah, there's definitely a twin flame vibe with those two, but I definitely think the earth plane wasn't, in this incarnation, they've probably had other incarnations. I'm not feeling it's one that was at all, it just wasn't a happy one. It wasn't a happy one for them in this, but yeah, they're definitely still together, but they have got their backs to each other, so it's almost like they've had a little bit of a lover's tiff up there as well. I don't know why they've got their back to each other, but they have. Okay. Let's just see if I can tune into her a little bit. She's very cool. She's very much like an ice queen type energy. I'm hearing Helen of Troy. Let's just see. Who was Helen of Troy? Helen of Troy. Known as the beautiful Helen, was a figure in Greek mythology. Right, there's something about Greek mythology with this dynasty I'm wanting to say, actually. Because, of course, Jackie married Aristotle Onassis, who was a Greek tycoon. So, Greece. I mentioned Icarus with JFK Jr. I'm assuming JFK must be Icarus's father. I can't remember that. And now we've got Helen of Troy, said to have been the most beautiful woman in the world. You see, she was the most beautiful woman in the world to John. There was nobody else. There was nobody else. Look at these pictures. There was nobody else but her. What is Helen of Troy known for? Helen of Troy is a figure from Greek mythology whose elopement or abduction by the Trojan prince Paris sparked off the Trojan War. It's interesting. I think Helen of Troy is linked into adultery, being horrified at its consequences. Right, okay, this again, you can say in the comments, but there's something here about adultery. And I believe that she wasn't faithful to John in this life. There are romances that are not affected by time. They are so intense that they last forever. One example is Paris and Helen of Troy, two characters that fall somewhere between legend and truth and whose love has served as a symbol of perpetual and predestined love. They were together despite everything, together whatever the cost, even if it was war. This story is composed of the great love affairs, heroes and battles that caused the Trojan War. Okay. So it leads to war, it leads to death, it leads to devastation. I'm getting Rodin's The Thinker. I think it's a statue or a picture. Rodin's The Thinker. It's like John, it's like in this pose of like thinking, what do I do? What do I do with her? How do I handle her? It's the wild horse again. Yeah, all right. I'm going to end this just by talking a little bit about any message he has for USA. So I'm going to use this deck here and also tune into him myself. JFK Jr. And then I better go. I've actually got to go to the dentist. I've just realised in an hour. Okay, let me just try and focus on message for the USA. Follow your heart. The energy of love. We're back to Camelot. We're back to love. We're back to getting back into the heart consciousness energy. No wonder he wanted to be a member of the Heartsquad. Guys, I am going to have to leave it there. I hadn't realised what the time is. I've actually got a really big dental appointment in an hour and 10 minutes and I need to have my lunch. So wish me luck at the dentist. Not particularly looking forward to it, I have to be honest. Might have to have a tooth out or have a root canal redone. So sorry, I am going to have to leave it there. But I think that's enough for a first attempt. And sorry to leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger then, but I think his whole life was a bit like that. He left us all on a bit of a cliffhanger. So I will bring him back and we will do a more in-depth reading. Maybe the next USA reading that I do for you, I'll bring JFK Jr. through. But I am going to leave it there today. Let's just pull one final card from this other deck that I've been using throughout this video. Final message, JFK Jr. Stranger of Gardens. That would be, what is that? That is the Pentacle of Coins. The Pentacle of Coins. Yeah. So that's the Jester, the Page of Pentacles, that is. So, always the Sun. He's given me another song now. I mean, the Page, Sun, Father. So yeah, JFK Sun, but always the Sun. Who did that one? Let's just look that one up. He likes his music, doesn't he? That's the song he wants to leave us with, but for us not to be like Icarus, who flies too close and is too reckless. This is a song by the Stranglers, actually. Great British band called Always the Sun. I'm going to read you the lyrics. How many times have you woken up and prayed for the rain? And how many times have you seen the papers apportion the blame? Who gets to say, who gets to work, and who gets to play? I was always told at school everybody should get the same. How many times have you been told if you don't ask, you don't get? How many lads have taken your money? Your mother said you shouldn't bet. Who has the fun? Is it always the man with a gun? Someone must have told you if you work too hard, you can sweat. There's always the sun, there's always the sun. I think it's another song very much linking into an ode of to be your own person, to be free, to throw off the shackles. He's definitely somebody who seems to embody the energy of going for it, freedom, living your best life, getting back into your heart, and I'm sure there's a lot more to say. I'm going to leave it there now, out of necessity, and I'll see you for the next one. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it, please share it, and I'll see you again soon. Much love. Bye-bye for now. Bye. one other thing, and most important thing, just to say a big thank you to John himself. In my rush to get to the dentist, I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, I haven't actually thanked him. So thank you, John. Appreciate you spending time with us. It was really lovely being in your energy and presence, and I will bring you back through very soon. Love to everybody. Bye for now. Bye.